The day I moved into Willow Creek Ridge, I honestly thought I had found the perfect place to start fresh. The neighborhood looked like something straight out of a real estate commercial. Quiet streets, perfectly trimmed lawns, houses lined up with a kind of neat symmetry that suggested everyone here took pride in keeping things peaceful. After months of searching, it felt like I had finally landed somewhere calm. The moving truck had barely finished backing into the driveway when I noticed someone approaching from across the street. She walked with the kind of confident purpose that makes you stop what you're doing, even if you don't know why. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched on her head, she introduced herself before I even had the chance to say hello. Karen, president of the HOA. The way she said it made it sound less like a role and more like a title of authority. Within seconds, she was handing me a thick packet of neighborhood rules, casually glancing over my car, my boxes, even the way the truck was parked. Nothing openly rude, just small comments. Little observations that somehow felt like judgments. At the time, I figured she was just one of those overly strict neighbors who took the HOA a little too seriously. Looking back now, that first conversation should have warned me exactly what kind of war I had just walked into. At first, I assumed Karen's little inspection routine on moving day was just a one-time welcome ritual. You know, the overly dedicated HOA president making sure the new guy understood the neighborhood standards. I figured after a few days, things would settle down. They didn't. The very next morning, I found a neatly folded note tucked under my windshield wiper. It politely reminded me that parking in the driveway overnight was discouraged unless absolutely necessary. Later that afternoon, Karen appeared again, standing at the edge of my lawn with what looked suspiciously like a measuring tape. She didn't even try to hide it. She simply smiled and mentioned that the grass in Willow Creek Ridge was expected to stay under a very specific height. A couple of days after that, she knocked on my door to discuss the exact alignment of my mailbox. Each encounter was wrapped in that same polite tone, but underneath it was something sharper. Like every conversation was less about helping and more about reminding me who ran things around here. What really caught my attention, though, was the way the rest of the neighborhood reacted to her. People smiled when she spoke, but the smiles looked tight, careful, almost rehearsed, and every message about neighborhood rules, events, or complaints flowed through the same place, the HOA group chat that Karen seemed to control entirely. At the time, I thought Karen was just obsessed with control. But I didn't realize she was already setting up a story where I would be the villain. About a week after I moved in, the neighborhood group chat lit up like a fireworks show. My phone kept buzzing on the kitchen counter while I was unpacking another box. At first I ignored it, assuming it was just another reminder about recycling bins or lawn care schedules. But the notifications kept coming. Finally, I opened the chat. Karen's message sat right at the top. Important, $400 is missing from the HOA donation box. The wording alone felt heavy, but what came next made my stomach drop. She added that the money had been collected during the last community meeting and that it had always been safe before. Then, almost casually, she mentioned that the disappearance happened right after the neighborhood welcomed its newest resident. That newest resident, of course, was me. Within minutes, replies started appearing. Strange timing. We've never had theft here before. Maybe we should look into this. Karen never actually typed the words accusing me directly. She didn't need to. The implication floated through the conversation like smoke filling a room. I tried to keep my response calm, writing that I hoped the money turned up soon and that it sounded like an unfortunate misunderstanding. Karen responded almost instantly, reminding everyone how important trust was in a close community. After that, something shifted. Neighbors who had waved earlier in the week suddenly avoided eye contact. Conversation stopped when I walked past. A few days later, flyers appeared on mailboxes about community safety awareness. By the end of that day, Karen had turned an entire neighborhood against me. The confrontation came 3 mornings later. I was halfway through my coffee when my doorbell started ringing like someone had their finger glued to the button. When I opened the door, Karen was standing there with 2 neighbors behind her, Doug and Barb, both looking uncomfortable but determined to play their roles. Karen crossed her arms and gave me a tight smile. She said she was giving me a chance to make things right before the situation became more serious. According to her, if I quietly returned the missing $400, the community would be willing to move forward and forget the misunderstanding. For a second, I honestly thought she was joking. When I asked what proof she had that I took anything, her expression hardened. Her voice got louder, carrying across the front lawns like she wanted an audience. A couple of neighbors slowed down their morning walks nearby, clearly curious about the show. Karen started repeating the same implication she had spread online, that the money disappeared right after I arrived. I stepped outside and told her calmly that if she truly believed a crime had been committed, she should call the police instead of playing neighborhood detective. That comment made her face turn bright red. She spun around, muttering about community safety and irresponsible residents. Later that afternoon, new flyers appeared on mailboxes warning people to stay alert around unfamiliar neighbors. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just accusing me, she was trying to destroy my reputation. After the flyer incident, something inside me shifted. Up until that point, I had been trying to keep the peace, telling myself the situation would calm down if I didn't add fuel to the fire. But once I realized Karen was actively trying to turn the neighborhood against me, I stopped treating the situation like a misunderstanding and started treating it like evidence. Every message in the HOA group chat got screenshotted. Every flyer that showed up in my mailbox went into a folder. I saved security camera clips from my porch that showed Karen pacing outside my house or leaving notes on my door. Even small conversations with neighbors who quietly admitted Karen had warned them about me went straight into my notes. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a record. Then I made one phone call. My cousin Daniel had spent the last decade working as a civil litigation attorney. The kind of lawyer who doesn't just read evidence, he dissects it. When I sent him everything Karen had posted, printed, and said, he went quiet for a moment before letting out a slow whistle. According to him, Karen hadn't just crossed a line. She had sprinted past several of them. Defamation, harassment, public slander. Karen thought she was targeting a random new resident with no support and no leverage. What she didn't realize was that I had been legally protected the entire time. Karen thought she was running a neighborhood court, but the real courtroom was about to open. Karen received the lawsuit notice on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I know that because half the neighborhood seemed to witness the moment the courier handed it to her at the end of her driveway. At first, she laughed it off. Within hours, she was already posting in the HOA group chat claiming I was trying to intimidate the community and silence honest people. According to Karen, the lawsuit was nothing more than a desperate attempt by a guilty man to scare everyone into backing down. But confidence in a group chat doesn't mean much inside a courtroom. A few weeks later, we were standing in front of a judge, and suddenly Karen's story didn't sound nearly as convincing. One by one, the evidence was presented. Screenshots from the HOA chat showing her carefully worded accusations. Photos of the flyers she distributed around the neighborhood. Witness statements from neighbors who admitted she had warned them about me before any proof existed. Even security footage shows her repeatedly approaching my property. As the evidence stacked higher, the judge's patience wore thinner. When Karen was asked why she believed I had stolen the money, she hesitated before saying she simply had a feeling. The judge leaned forward and shut that down immediately. Feelings, he explained, were not evidence. Publicly accusing someone without proof was defamation. The ruling came down shortly after. Karen was ordered to pay $30,000 in damages and post a written apology in the same group chat where the accusations began. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time since I moved in, Karen had nothing to say. The shift in the neighborhood was almost immediate. The same streets that had felt tense and quiet for weeks suddenly seemed lighter, like a storm had passed and people were cautiously stepping back outside. Neighbors who had avoided eye contact before now slowed down when they walked past my house. A few even stopped to apologize, mumbling about misunderstandings and saying they should have waited for facts before believing rumors. Karen, on the other hand, practically vanished. The woman who once marched around the neighborhood with a clipboard like a badge of authority now moved quickly from her car to her front door without saying a word to anyone. A few days after the verdict, the HOA group chat lit up again. This time, the message came from Karen herself. A formal apology, exactly as the court had ordered, acknowledging that the accusations against me were false and should never have been made. Reading it felt surreal, especially remembering how confident she had sounded just weeks earlier. The whole situation left me with one simple realization. Karen thought she could destroy my reputation with rumors, but she forgot one important rule. Never accuse someone of a crime unless you're ready to prove it. So tell me, did Karen get what she deserved? And if you enjoy stories like this, stick around for the next one.